Each time you defeat final boss of a level, a unique animation will play. It really reminds me of Love, Death, and Robots. The first animation tells a story from the Chinese novel Journey to the West. For players who haven't read this novel, it might be difficult to understand. In this video, I will explain it to you. The first thing you need to understand is that Journey to the West is a novel published in the 16th century during the Ming Dynasty. The West here means India, where Buddhism originated from. The novel is based on the pilgrimage of the Chinese Buddhist monk Xuanzang, who journeyed to India in the 7th century AD to seek out and collect Buddhist scriptures. The novel retains the broad outline of Xuanzang's own account, incorporating some fantasy elements from folk tales and the author's invention. In the first scene, a young monk tries unsuccessfully to trap a toad with his alms bowl. But why would he do that? To eat it? Obviously not. Mahayana Buddhism forbids monks from eating meat. The young monk was after gold. Let me explain. Toads can lay 2 to 30,000 eggs in strings up to 60 feet long. Traditionally, Chinese people believe that more children means more blessings. Over time, folklore arose that toads could spit out gold, but why would a young monk need gold? In the author's era, a scourge of land annexation and famine had driven countless tenant farmers to become monks. The decline in the agricultural population reduced government revenue and further exacerbated the famine. To curb the trend, Emperor Jiajing decreed that ordination required a hefty fee. Even those already ordained were taxed. The young monk in the scene, carrying in a bundle, is clearly an outsider. He urgently needs money to enter the Guanyin Temple to continue his practice. The young monk chases the toad deep into the dense forest, only to encounter a gigantic black bear. Terrified, the monk trembles. Yet the bear does not harm him and even bestows upon him a trove of jewels and coins. It is obvious that the bear killed travelers passing through Blackwind Mountain and obtained these treasures. In order to be ordained, the little boy chooses to accept property. The novice monk gets his dharma name, JInchi. He is timid and self-conscious, bending over and lowering his head. Surrounded by monks adorned in opulent kasaya, he feels out of place in his simple garb. I'll give you a bit of background. Kasaya are the robes of fully ordained Buddhist monks. The original kasaya was a one-piece, patchworked rectangular fabric. Kasaya, typically of muted hues, reflected their renunciation of worldly attachments. Yet during the Tang Dynasty, a shift occurred. The imperial court began to bestow upon esteemed monks opulent robes of purple and red. These garments became symbols of prestige, coveted by the monastic order. JInchi too succumbs to the allure of these worldly possessions. With the bear's assistance, he ascends the ranks of the temple and finally becomes the abbot. His kasaya becomes ever more extravagant. The black bear, a symbol of greed, transformed from a shadow into a concrete motif. The greed has turned his eyes into red, just like the bear's. He attempts to curb it and tells everyone to wear plain kasaya. In the ensuing scene, the noble pilgrim Sanzang and his mischievous disciple Wukong arrived at the temple. Then Sanzang lends his kasaya to the Elder JInchi. By this time, Elder JInchi is already 270 years old, which is clearly due to the black bear's magic. The original novel presents an elaborate account of this episode. Elder JInchi served Sanzang tea. A young page brought in 3 cloisonné teacups on a jade tray the color of mutton fat, and another carried in a white alloy teapot from which he poured out 3 cups of fragrant tea. It had a better color than pomegranate blossom, and its aroma was finer than cassia. He said, "What splendid things! Wonderful tea in wonderful vessels." Then JInchi asked Sanzang if he had brought some treasure with him from the Tang Empire. Sanzang replied that Eastern land has no great treasures, and even if it did, he would have been unable to bring them on such a long journey, while Wukong boasted that his master's kasaya was a valuable treasure. The kasaya collector, JInchi, laughed triumphantly and showed off his collection of over 800 kasaya. Eager to outshine JInchi, Wukong wanted to display his master's kasaya. Sanzang, sensing JInchi's greed, worried that Wukong's actions might lead to trouble. However, Wukong disregarded his master's concerns. He rushed off and opened the bundle, took out the kasaya, and shaken it open. The hall was bathed in red light, and clouds of colored vapor filled the courtyard. Hung with pearls of unrivaled quality, studded with Buddhist treasures infinitely rare. Above and below, a dragon beard sparkles on grass cloth edged with brocade. When the aged monk saw how rare a treasure it was, his heart was indeed disturbed. He kneeled before Sanzang. He begged Sanzang to allow him to bring the kasaya to his room to examine it closely during the night and promised to return it in the morning. Sanzang acquiesced with some reluctance. Elder JInchi assigned the master and disciple lodgings in the front meditation hall. Then he held it under the lamp in the back room as he wept and wailed over it. Greed consumed him, leaving him with an insatiable desire to possess the kasaya eternally. A junior monk named Guangji suggested breaking into the meditation hall and killing Sanzang and Wukong, then burying them in the back garden, while another young monk named Guangmu thought Wukong could be tricky, so he advised to put a bundle of firewood outside the meditation hall and burnt Sanzang and Wukong to death. JInchi thought it was a better idea. I bet you've already noticed that 2 monsters in the game have borrowed their names. Then over 200 junior and senior monks shifted firewood all night, piled it up all around the meditation hall so that there was no way out, and prepared to set it alight. While the monkey's spirit remained alert and his suspicions were aroused by the noise, he turned himself into a bee and found out the monks were trying to kill him and his master. Instead of killing those monks directly, which his master always forbidden him to do so, he had a plan to protect his master and punish monks. The splendid monkey leapt into heaven with a single somersault. Wukong asked Heavenly King to lend his fireproof mantle to him to save his master. "You've got it all wrong," the Heavenly King replied. "If villains are trying to burn him, you should rescue him with water. What do you need my fireproof mantle for?" "Let everything else burn. I care for nothing but my master. Give it to me, quickly."
多谢了啊！
你这好法。
Monkey spread the mantle over the Tang priest. Then he went to sit on top of the aged monk's room to protect the kasaya. As he watched them start the fire, he kept on reciting a spell and blew some magic breath towards the southwest, at which a wind arose and fanned the flames up into a wild and roaring blaze. In a few moments, the raging wind had blown the fire up into an inferno, and the whole Guanyin monastery was red. The monks scrambled to extinguish the blaze, while Sanzang slumbered peacefully. The raging fire stirred the Black Wind King, the Black Bear. He thought he'd better go and help put out the fire. When he rushed into the temple, he noticed that the rooms at the back were not burning as there was someone on the roof keeping the wind away. He found a kasaya in the room and was disturbed by the sight of this valuable object. He forgot about putting out the fire or calling for water and grabbed the kasaya. Then he went straight back to his cave. When dawn broke, JInchi discovered that the temple had been ruined by fire. The scriptures turned to ashes and the kasaya was lost. Overwhelmed with regret and fear, he took his own life by striking his head against a wall. The animated version dramatically portrayed JInchi's greed as flames that consumed him and the temple. Wukong later found out that the Black Bear had stolen the kasaya, but was unable to defeat him. He turned to the Bodhisattva Guanyin for help, reasoning that the incident happened at the Guanyin temple where Guanyin was worshipped. Guanyin eventually subdued the Black Bear, making him a guardian and taking him back to the South Sea. With the kasaya recovered, Wukong and Tang Sanzang resumed their journey to the west. The theme of the animation is greed. At the end, the Black Bear asks Guanyin why JInchi couldn't let go of a simple kasaya. Guanyin's response is both paradoxical and ironic.
若不披上这件衣裳，众生又怎知我尘缘已断，金海尽干。
Greed, being one of the 3 poisons in Buddhism, is a vice that Buddhists strive to eradicate. As a monk, JInchi should have abandoned worldly attachments. However, he resorted to murder for a kasaya, while a prohibition of killing is the first precept for Buddhists. Isn't that ironic? In the original novel, JInchi said to Guangji, "I'm 270 this year, and I've collected all those hundreds of kasaya for nothing. How am I to get hold of that one of his? How am I to become like the Sanzang priest?" You see, a kasaya is more than just a garment. It's a symbol of social status and a testament to one's religious standing. JInchi aspired to be like Sanzang, basking in imperial favors and the admiration of fellow monks. The chapter title, Black Clouds and Red Fire, is rich in symbolism. Black clouds allude to the Black Bear demon, while red fire represents both the temple fire and the consuming flames of JInchi's greed. The Black Bear's offering served as a catalyst, igniting JInchi's greed and ultimately enslaving him. He became increasingly trapped in his own desires, unable to break free. In reality, players outside the game also face similar temptations and challenges as JInchi in our own lives.